Fantastic. Our next speaker is Mohammed Gawdat. He's going to be talking to us about technology and creating a level playing field. Mohammed.
Good morning. So I get the privilege and the pleasure of running Google's business in 119 emerging countries around the world. And if you can imagine with this type of territory, basically I have to travel almost all the time. Back in 1999, oh, they want me in the light. There you go. Stand in the light. Back in 1999, I came to a realization that if I actually started to pay attention, I would learn quite a lot about the people that I come across in all my travels. So when you actually notice those people as people, not as background to your passage through the airport or people in the seats in a business conference, you start to realize how different every individual is. And I actually encourage you to look at the person next to you and try even for 1 second or two to notice what's different about them. It's a very humbling experience when you realize at the end of the day that your way of doing things is not the only way that the world can go, and that there could be many ways where people can also be right. Of course, as a Middle Eastern, whose name is Muhammad Ali, I get the added perk of spending extended hours in passport control queues and in the random security checks. So, which I don't complain about, but I have to say when you're there, you start thinking, what is it about a Muhammad or an Osama or a Middle Eastern that engages that same sort of reaction anywhere you go in the world? And, when you think about it, there is really no physical feature that, distinguishes you from the others. Maybe it's naive to consider that all people from a certain cultural background have the same ideology. I don't actually think that people are so easily figured out. Yet, when you think about it, I have to say that in the last few decades, we have probably come very close to what I call the golden age of stereotyping. So I'm going to start by asking you to think a little bit. I'll give you a few examples, nothing too controversial. And I'm going to ask you to think a little bit about, from your own cultural background, what is right and what is wrong. But also, more importantly, I'm going to ask you to think, are there situations where sometimes both people are right or perhaps both people are wrong? So let's start with this. If you've been to Africa, you would realize that there is a native African diet that consists of a type of bread, dipping sauce, and raw red meat, not even coming close to a fire. And I normally go for the bread and the dipping sauce, basically. But when you think about it, it shocks you the first time you see it. But what shocks you more is why you never really notice the number of rare steaks that are ordered at our prestige dinners, or why sushi is not really unusual at all. When you think about the way we present ourselves, normally a wealthy female is associated with the image of being tanned and slim, while actually in Africa it's almost the exact opposite. A wealthy lady will be will have a little bit of a fuller body because it signals abundance, and will probably have a lighter complexion because it signals that she doesn't have to work in the sun with the poor. Is it diamonds or is it gold? Or are both a little overrated? I actually normally get very intrigued by how the US or the UK or France would normally make fun of their leaders in public. It's like a daily routine. While in many Eastern cultures, perhaps Thailand, Turkey, here in the UAE, we actually hold a lot of respect for our leaders and would be very offended if somebody mocks them. So once again, what is right and what is wrong? And I think the one realization I came to is that there is one thing that is true about every human being you meet. We come with this concept, almost an equation pre-programmed in our system, that I am always right. And that if I am right and the other guy is different, then obviously the other guy is wrong. Now, this equation has grown to a massive scale in the last decade. It's moved from an individual to individual view to a nation-to-nation view, to a culture-to-culture view. And I'll just take a couple of minutes to try and ask you to think about why that is happening. My view is that with the spread of mass media, we got a lot of democratization of knowledge and information. I mean, think before the printing press or broadcast radio and TV, knowledge and information was exclusively held for people who had the wealth or the royalty or the noble part of the society. And then as those new technologies came to our world, we started to get more and more knowledge for every one of us as individuals. The interesting thing is, as this did happen, it increased our ability to access information tremendously at all levels of the society, but it also came with a few, let's say, built-in weaknesses. One of which, in my view, is that information started to be manufactured at scale. And to manufacture something at scale, you almost have to design it, you almost have to customize it, and you have to repeatedly get it out in the same shape and form all the time. It always has to sort of be newsworthy or box office worthy, if you want. And that made us get the information from a certain perspective, if you want. I think the other issue, which is really the biggest issue, is that we, with this abundance of information, did not have to seek information anymore. We just were out there, and it was just a stream of constant knowledge that comes to us. And so we never doubted it. We just sat back in what I normally call a passive information intake mode. While you're passive, you're sitting there, and what is said to you is what you believe. And unfortunately, none of us started to doubt if any of that information is really true, or if it's a single point of view of the world, or in any case, if it's information that I need to verify in any case. And I think what happened there is that we got told what shampoo to use. I didn't. And we got told what car to drive. We got told what does it take to look cool. But we also started to get told who's the good guys and who are the bad guys and who's your enemy and who is your friend. And I'm sure many of you would agree with me that the world we have gone through in the last 10 years have seen a noticeable escalation in cross-cultural misunderstandings, sometimes leading to hate. And it's unfortunate that many of our kids today will grow up to think that all Muslims are terrorists, or Americans are capitalists who will stop at nothing to get your money, or many other perceptions that are absolutely wrong. And I think it's important that something gets done about this. So why am I talking to you about this? I'm a technology guy. I'm talking about this because I actually am proud to say that I believe my industry, the internet, is playing a pivotal role in changing this trend and hopefully to the better. So I'm going to talk to you about the internet from the point of view of what does the internet do, how people interact with the internet. People interact with the internet from four sides. One is they learn from the internet, they acquire knowledge, but also they communicate and they participate. They take part of what's happening on the internet, and then they socialize, right? So these are the human interactions with the internet. I'll take you quickly with some examples on every one of them. So there is no better example on earth of the democracy of information than TED. So we've heard our morning speech around how these ideas are now available for free to the world, how we're trying to make them available in every language. And you would actually be amazed by the number of views. I mean, on YouTube alone, the TED channel, some of the most viewed talks have been viewed more than 1.6 million times. In total, the viewership is in the high-end millions. With that approach to making information available, there is now a democracy where everybody around the world, wherever they are, they have the chance to get to see what you guys get to see in this closed conference room. I'm a big fan of the MIT courseware, where, or the iTunes University, where now any student anywhere in the world, in India, in the Middle East, in Africa, has the same access to the same information and knowledge that a person in the top league universities in the world will have. So this type of democracy, I think the only excuse that somebody has today not to get the knowledge as it really should be is their willingness or lack of willingness to acquire knowledge. It goes much more beyond the type of information that's available on the internet. It's the scale of information that is unbelievable. It's estimated that in 2008 alone, 487 exabytes of information were produced on the web. Now, I'm not sure how many of you know what an exabyte is, but let's put that in perspective. The complete works of Shakespeare is 5 megabytes. If you fill a pickup truck of those, that becomes 1 gigabyte, like the ones you have on your USB stick. 1 billion of those pickup trucks is an exabyte. Now, we produced in 2008 on the internet 487 of those. As a matter of fact, there is an estimate that all human knowledge from the dawn of humanity until the year 2003 came to 5 exabytes. In 2008, we developed 8 times that much every month. Now, think about all of that knowledge and the freedom that this is bringing. Now, it is amazing that we at Google, we get millions, hundreds of millions of users asking us more than 1 billion questions a day. To be able to answer that, we have to index more than 300 billion pages on the web. Now, those 300 billion pages on the web cannot be displayed in a way where we are the media programmer. We don't program what comes from the web. What we want to do is to let the web decide what's important. And technologies like PageRank, for example, is basically an equation of more than 500 million variables of who votes for which page to be the most popular and most important. That democracy, again, is that we don't get to choose. You get to choose what's important. Think of Al Jazeera, an IP video, IP video over the internet allowed, Al Jazeera or BBC, to go beyond all boundaries and all elegant censorships, if you want. So people take that knowledge and they start to communicate. There has been 33 billion instant messages sent in the year 2008, more than 210 billion emails. Now, what people do, Hotmail, for example, has more than 325 million subscribers. And the difference between, you talking to a friend and sending it on an email is an email is perpetual. It stays, you take it, you forward it to another person, and as you forward it, this knowledge goes from one person to the next. And think of how many times, on your own personal email, you got a piece of information that you truly admired that originated originally from somebody you have no idea who he is. Now, that takes you to a level of transfer of knowledge. That knowledge now is not transferred by the expert anymore. It's people telling people searching and finding information and sending it to the next. Twitter is the flavor of the year, and Twitter has more than 50 million subscribers. 46% of those would check for updates on daily basis. This tells you how the new generation is so much into knowledge all the time, communication all the time. It is not about I'll wait and I'll check when I go home anymore. People also participate. My absolute favorite part of the internet. The internet is not created anymore as manufactured information. Wikipedia is the largest encyclopedia on the planet, more than 130 million articles in 250 languages. Those articles are not produced by the experts, the scientists, the knowledge keepers. They're produced by the crowd. More than 500,000 Wikipedians are vetting through that information, correcting it, editing it, and refining it so that it becomes the absolute repository of the wisdom of the crowds. Participation goes to blogging. More than 250,000 words get written on Blogger every minute of every day. Since 2002, there has been more than 130 million blogs created. That is more than 1 per second. Now, think about that. Now, your world view is no longer shaped by what you get told. It is shaped by what other people are putting as knowledge on the web. Participation with video, the low cost of video production. On YouTube, people upload almost a day of videos every single minute, 20 hours to be exact. And those videos get watched across the world and are gaining tremendous momentum. You would think that they get watched in a certain part of the world. This map here shows the distribution of the top viewed video on YouTube, viewed more than 130 million times. This single video around dance. And this video gets viewed everywhere in the world. The only white places on this map would be places that you basically don't have enough internet connectivity. Kiva is my absolute favorite example of participation. Kiva is an organization that aims to fund micro-loans to entrepreneurs. But the way people participate in charity on the internet is not by subscribing to a charity organization or to a cause. What they do actually is they get to know the people that they're giving to. So they get to know their story, they get to know their life pains, they get to know their dreams, and they get to know what they want to do with the money, and then they choose to participate. Kiva has given more than 130 million microloans through 560,000 funders. And the beauty of this is that those people, because there is this social connection, actually pay back their loans at a rate of 98.4%, higher than any financial institution in the world. This is what a social connection across cultures can do for you. I'll close very quickly with the internet's impact on the social fabric of our humanity. So Facebook today has more than 300 million subscribers. There has been an interesting survey in China recently where two-thirds of internet users will agree that they can have a friendship entirely on the web with somebody that they will never see in their life. As a matter of fact, 25% of UK teenagers online have friends that they have never seen before and will never plan to see. An interesting statistic in the US is that they ran a survey of 10,000 married couples in 2006-2007. 1,900 of them met online. The funny thing is that only 1,700 met at work or through a friend. So this is the reality of what the web is doing to our social culture and social fabric. Places like Poptropica have more than 76 million subscribers from 5 to 10 years of age, and places like Habu have more than 135 million subscribers that come together as a community. They consider those people their own friends. They consider that they have more in common with those people than their next-door neighbor. Now, I want you to put things in perspective. With those numbers, Poptropica is now larger than the population of Germany. The Habu community is closing in on Russia. Facebook is almost as big as the US. And the World Wide Web in total, at 1.8 billion people online, not counting the people on mobile, is way, way beating China. Now, I say with a lot of confidence that today's largest nation on earth is the World Wide Web. Those people are very, very similar. They have a freedom of expression and a democracy of information that I did not enjoy as I grew up. They participate, they communicate all the time, they shape the web the way they want. And as they do that, they get to know about the other guy, not through what the expert is telling them, but they get to know about the other guy from the other guy. As a matter of fact, I wanted to give you a visual view of how this is done. When you think about it, every time you get together with another person, you get to know a little bit about them that shapes your perception. So I'll take you to one of my favorite places on the web, facebook.org. And faceresearch.org. Face Research averages out faces to give you an image of what would you do if you put all of these together. It honestly takes down all the rough edges and puts them in a very average face that I think most of you will feel familiar with. You will be okay with this person and the way he looks or she looks. Now, this is what the internet is doing. I think this trend is really driving us to a place where we become much more familiar with the person on the other side. And I really wish that this trend continues, because I hope that when somebody tells my kids that the other guy is the enemy, my kids will say, I actually think the other guy is pretty cool. He's my virtual friend on Facebook. I saw his video on YouTube, and I actually think he has a very, very valid view of life. Maybe different than yours, but it's quite valid. So let me send you a link to his blog, and I hope that you will understand that that perspective too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed.